Hey Ross, good to have you.
Hello, hello. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So we have this segment Bad to Better for Bad Ideas Fund community, and this time we're switching things up and thinking of ways how we can support startups themselves in the early stages. And picking your brain is just such a great opportunity we can't miss. I mean, you have such a, rich background and experience behind you. You've been senior growth PM at Vimeo. You've been building Bird. You are a Reforge alum, and so you know your way around GTM, paid acquisition, product strategy, all of the and everything in between. And lately, you did write a pretty bombshell long form article that just went viral. Can you tell us about it? And please share more about your background that I have missed.
No, I think you did great. So yeah, I've been at Vimeo, I've been at Bird, Braids, and a bunch of other companies. I guess throughout my career, I've been on the growth side mostly. Even before the growth term was officially part in the in the world. So yeah, know quite a few things about that. And most recently, I quit Vimeo in September. So this time I spent kind of helping the companies that I invested in together with you guys, obviously, as well as doing some self-reflection on the experience I had, which resulted in that article made by Adam Fishman and I on how to build growth models, and it did go really well. Apparently, it's was sort of a surprise, but now it seems we will be launching a Reforge course talking just about the growth models. But more on that coming soon. And yeah, about that specific thing. So as a growth person, what I often see is how teams are focusing on the wrong things, right? Because if you really think about it, we have like a bunch of conversion rates, and we're trying to optimize them, and probably gonna fail. We're gonna fail a lot. That's fine. But what usually happens is that once team fails multiple times working on, let's say, activation, they would naturally say, okay, maybe it's time for us to shift on something else. Let's, spitball some ideas. Oh, okay, it seems like we have a lot of ideas for retention rate, so let's maybe focus on retention rate. And that is wrong. Like you can't really do it. Like you cannot work on something that like makes more sense from the first glance, or something that you feel you have like more experience. It's just like it's not really gross. The thing that I usually, at least I'm trying to remind myself, is that bad execution, the right thing, at the end of the day, is going to be better than excellent execution, the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's no point to optimize like the open rate for the like third welcome email if your like primary focus should have been activation instead. So um, for a while, I've been like struggling with that thing myself. And back in 2017 or 2019, I don't remember the year exactly, but I stumbled upon this really massive, big ass spreadsheet for growth people. And that big ass massive spreadsheet, it was essentially like, okay, so if we take all the inputs that we have, like all the conversion rates, all the like cost per installs, or like whatever acquisition channel we have, we squeeze it through the product funnel. What's gonna happen? Like how many users we gonna have? How much revenue we gonna have in like 1 month, in 3 months, in like 12 months from now, and I love that. It kind of like changed my career a lot, because finally I was able to articulate the forecast, like what's gonna happen in the future, and why we're working on something very specific. But there is a catch, and the catch is that spreadsheet was way too big. And when I was trying to like communicate it to like founders or cross-functional team members, they were like, I'm not entirely sure what do you mean here and there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that became a problem. It's like just too big of a thing to communicate. So essentially what happened next is I came up with kind of sort of like simpler version, a version that you can explain in just like 5 minutes, and I guess we're gonna test it today if I will be able to do it in under 5 minutes. A version that gives you the overview. It is somewhat accurate. It's not like 100% accurate, and this is because I would use the number of inputs just to include like the most important ones. And ultimately, it helps you to pick the best focused area and to really understand, should you focus on like retention or activation or engagement or acquisition or like any other part of a user journey. That was long. Sorry about that. But yeah.
Just to add some context, where is this coming from? What sort of experience have you had? What companies have you been building? Can you give us a short rundown of what your achievements to date?
Yeah, you mean with growth model specifically?
I mean, with everything around GTM growth and what led you to applying this, so that there is some clarity for those listening. Okay, yeah, you know your shit.
Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Yeah, I think I have a perfect example, and this is an example of Vimeo. So I joined Vimeo as a first growth person within the product organization, right? And when I joined to lead the PLG function of Vimeo. So in product-led growth, we had a bunch of products that would like fall under this category. They were just launched like 6 months ago, 1 year ago, somewhere in that time frame. And we faced the problem. It grew so fast at the beginning, but then it hit the stagnation phase. So no growth whatsoever, like flat, all metrics are flat. It's terrible, right? And so I joined, and I was like specifically tasked with like addressing that problem, figure out why we're not growing, where the problem is, what we need to fix, and how to do that. And that was the story. We got 4x user growth and 3x revenue growth in under 9 months. And in our world, that translates into like millions on both ends of the spectrum. But how did we do that exactly? And that's where the growth model came in. And I built this spreadsheet. I took, again, like all the metrics, like from the acquisition side, like how do I acquire people, where they're coming from, how much money we're paying for those users from one side. Then I was like, okay, what about the sign-up rates, activation rate, like how do people use the products? And what happens afterwards. And actually like playing a bit with the model and trying to see how different scenarios of like potential effort would play out. We were able to identify like one very specific step on the acquisition stage. Like it was super duper specific. It was like the moments after like someone signed up, after they tried the product for the first time, and between the first and the second try, that was our like focus area. So we did it's like laser focus, honestly. So we worked just on that thing, and I guess we were able to like solve for the stagnation problem in maybe like our first months, maybe like first like 6 or 7 weeks, just because again the growth model showed us where would we have the biggest potential uplift. And now instead of like, trying to like sort that thing out, trying to open this thing, trying to open that thing, we just like picked our area and we like double, triple down on that one specifically. And then once the stagnation was like overcome, essentially, we then used the same model. We then decide, okay, let's play around again and see now with like new inputs, with the new reality, what that focus area should be. So that is Vimeo. Before Vimeo, it was Braid, which is like a fintech startup. I was like first non-technical hire there. And for a startup, again, it's the question, right? Should we try to bring the like cost per install down, or should we try to increase the aha moments, like activation rates essentially, or should we, work on like third month retention rate? So there are like so many questions that you really don't have like really great answers to. And historically speaking, it was more art than it was science. And the growth model, it kind of like helps you bring more science into the process So you as a growth person, you can deliver constantly and you can find the best opportunities constantly with like, pretty high success rate, I would say. And again, with Braid, we went from zero to essentially $1 million per month in total volume payments in like 6 months.
Amazing.
Again, thanks for the all kudos goes to the end-to-end growth model.
And just recently you published the article with Adam Fishman. Can you tell who Adam Fishman is for those who are not aware, and
Oh my
how it
gosh.
came about?
Yeah, first off, he's my idol, I guess. I'm a huge fan. So he used to be a head of growth at Lyft, at Patreon, at Perfect Foods. So a bunch of like really great companies, And most recently, he joined Reforge. He's running the growth series on Reforge. I guess like helping new generation of growth people learn how to do growth from a scientific standpoint. And it was like a totally anecdotal because what happened, I published my artifact on Reforge, it went viral. And then a couple of days after, Adam published his, and I checked it and I was like, dude, those things, they're like created for each other. They're like so close to one another. And I was like, damn, so like we worked alike. And I just added him on LinkedIn and messaged him like, hey Adam, huge fan of yours. I saw that you have published this artifact. I also did publish mine a while ago, and maybe we can work together. Like maybe we can co-create a guide how to build the growth model. And he agreed. I was like, oh my gosh. So first off, Adam himself is responding to my message, and second off, he is agreeing to us working together. And that's what happened next. We just came up with this really detailed guide on how to build growth models using some of the examples from my experience.
This is amazing. It's so great to hear. And this is so much needed in the space. Like you as a founder are, you have so many distractions, so many problems to deal with,
Yeah.
and biggest challenge is how do you prioritize? What do you focus on? Your energy? What are the 9 out of 10 things that you actually don't do? And instead of relying on some hunch, your take is that you should just plug in the numbers in a spreadsheet and let it tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Can
pretty
you
much
give us
it.
can you show us around and give us how does it practically work? So
Yeah, let me share my screen and walk you through the example that we talked about on Reforge and with Adam. So what you guys are seeing now is essentially a real model. Obviously, it has a bunch of like dummy data into it now. But yeah, that's like literally what I used in the past. And it was done for Braid. For the context, Braid is a fintech product, multi-user fintech product. Essentially, it's like when you're living with a roommate and now you guys need to somehow share the rent payments or like share your Netflix subscription, whatever. That's where Braid would come to essentially help you. And that's the app product. So what you're seeing here, the first one is the inputs tab. Now, I'm a huge fan to have all the numbers that you're gonna add manually in just one tab. And then the other, they would automatically calculate, like it essentially those have like all the formulas and stuff to show you what's gonna happen in terms of the users or revenue or like whatever other metric you really care about. And so essentially you can change something only in one place and then it's gonna be recalculated across all the other tabs. So what kind of inputs we have here? Well, the first one is obviously funnel. So for us, the things that we cared the most about was what is happening between install and KYC. For the context, KYC is know your customer, is the process that every single fintech is obligated to have. It's when we ask people for their like legal first, last name, and social security number and date of birth. So like you can't move money in the system if you did not complete the KYC. After KYC has been completed, now we are getting to the step where people would need to add their bank accounts. So essentially connect their cards. And then once those cards are connected, we're moving to activation rates where you have to perform the very first transaction. So you have to add money to your like shared, what we call pool, quote unquote. And after that, it's like, yeah, retention rate. So all we care about is after you send money once, are you coming back and like sending it for the second, third, or like whatever time. So those are our conversion rates. You're seeing that in Jan 2023, again, dummy data, but we had approximately 14% people from install completing the KYC successfully. Then 36% of them, after they complete the KYC, they link their bank accounts. 58 transacted for the first time, and 75% of those would come back and transact for the second time. So essentially what you like should be thinking about is that, okay, if I am getting like 100 people on top of my funnel, what's going to happen next, right? And yeah, essentially you're saying, okay, 14 of them would complete the KYC and blah, 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 yada, yada. So then once a user would stick to the product, a couple of things might happen. They can be casual, core, or power users, meaning that they would transact, they would have a different number of transactions performed on a monthly basis, and that transaction value would also be different. So as you might see, for someone who's just a casual person, a casual user of ours, they would transact, per one transaction, they would send approximately $167 versus someone who's a power user, they would send $193. And casual folks, they would prefer around like 11 transactions per month, where power users, they would set a bar higher at around 18 transactions. And we have the distribution here. So naturally, and due to the like marketing activities, growth activities, we know that for every new cohort of users we're gonna acquire, it's like 60% of them would fall under the casual bucket, 27 under the core, and 13 under the power user cohort. Then we have our financials. Probably I'm gonna skip it for now. It doesn't really matter at this point. I would say that the other big thing here is the growth inputs. So for growth, as any other fintech in the US markets, we would use the paid ads and the referral program. Those were our like two major channels. So for the paid ads, I would say, okay, that's how much money we're gonna spend on Facebook, and that's how much money we're gonna spend on Apple search ads. And this is the cost per install that we'll be able to achieve. So again, what we are looking here for is, we know that we're gonna spend 48 grand on App Store search ads. We know that the cost per install is $4.59. You divide one by another, you're gonna see how many new users you're gonna have every single month, or like at the beginning of the month. And then you just like multiply it by 13.9, 36%, 58, etc., to find out how many like new KYC completed users you're gonna have, how many users with newly created bank accounts, and how many users with new transactions you're gonna see. So this is precisely what's happening on the Rows tab, where we are seeing like how many installs we're gonna have from each channel, what's gonna happen, how many new money movers we're gonna have, meaning again users who moved money for the first time within the system. Then we have our referral program and how many users we're gonna have from the referral program coming. We also have non-attributed users. This is like a typical scenario for every like new startup. We usually do not attribute 100% of our customers, especially if we're talking about the apps, thanks to like iOS 14.5. So we're also seeing a bunch of people coming from the channels that we are not sure what are those channels. But nevertheless, that's how many new folks we're gonna see. It's 923 people. And we know that from the past, let me switch back here, legacy users, we had 38,000 users before. So leaving us with 38,923 users for the month of January. And we then do the same thing with transactions. Hold on, let me quickly grab the chart here. So we're seeing the same thing with transactions. Again, those new people who came just recently, 923 of them, that's how much how many transactions they're gonna have. That's the value of those transactions, and that's the total amount of money moved within the system. Why we care about this one specifically is because as a fintech, we're making money when people are transacting through their card, and we get the interchange fees on top of that.
For a typical SaaS, you would just skip this. You would have the input, which is number of new users after a funnel times pricing, and that would be the simple
Yes.
one-liner.
Yeah. So essentially, like, well, what you're gonna do, you're gonna list the price plans that you have. Say you have like starter, pro, and advanced. Yeah, so you would need the distribution of people between those plans, like how many people subscribe from like each one of those. What is the price plan value? And yeah, then you're essentially done. You're saying, okay, out of 100 new customers, we know for a fact that like 40 of them would subscribe for the basic plan for value of like $5. Okay, you multiply everything, and that's how much money, how much new recurring revenue you would expect to have. Okay, so getting back here, essentially I would extrapolate those numbers for 12 months, maybe even 24 months. And what I'm doing here, I'm saying, okay, if this input remains the same, meaning if we do not do any work whatsoever across our funnel, how many users we're going to see in 12 months from now? How much revenue we're going to see in 12 months from now? So you might see that these numbers are different. They are different, well, because it's hello 2024 now. So at the end of every single month, or you know what? Let me do a step back. Let me say, okay, let's work on that together. Say that's the metric that we have now, right? And we go here, or we can even go here maybe. And we know that fees earned as our primary revenue metric. With the current activation rate, we would expect to hit $380,000 per month by April 2024. Now, as the time goes by, I would go to the inputs tab and I would update those numbers with the actual numbers that we're getting. So, there is seasonality, there is a difference in the paid campaigns that we're running. There's like a lot of things that make your conversion rates, floating, I guess, a bit. So let me change it. Yeah, and that's precisely what happens. I just revisit it and say, okay, that's what's gonna happen. Imagine we're somewhere here, right? Jan 2024, Feb 2024, we're saying that it's going to be like 37% by that time. And I'll go back again to fact versus plan. I'm seeing that, okay, initially we projected that we would hit $380,000, but in fact, we're going to hit $436,000. So you see, what is happening here is you can adjust those numbers, and you can, first off, you can play around with different scenarios. This is something that is called 1% increase exercise, where we take every single metric, we improve it by 1% relatively, and we see how it's going to affect our long-term growth. So typically, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to do it today on the call, but typically what you do after you have all the inputs listed, you would say, okay, let's let me do something like this and say we're going to improve it by 1%. So it will become like 14.04. And you just, extract it in the future, drag into the future, and you see how much uplift you're going to get if you'll be able to improve this metric. And you go for every single one of those, you do the same, and that's how you find your essentially focus area. After you found the focus area, now this is like my favorite, I guess, stage, because now we're talking about the initiatives, right? So essentially, if I'm saying that this metric would go up by 40% and going forward, it's going to stay on the 40%, I would list my initiatives here, like what kind of improvements I'm looking to make, what kind of new features I'm going to launch, or, what kind of work actually I'm going to do in order for us to get there. So that also works as a sort of like road mapping tool for the growth people. Because again, first step, we added all the inputs. Second step, we did the 1% increase exercise. Third step, we picked the focus area. For fourth step, we now talk about like how much improvement we can see there and what exactly we're going to do to get that improvement happening. And moving onwards, then I have the metric tab. The metric tab is just like a healthy checkup, I guess. So what we have here is a bunch of things that were important personally to me. I guess for everybody else, it would be like the growth rate, it would be the customer acquisition cost, it can be like LTV, so some kind of like high level metrics that you have like a really great benchmark for. Because with me, I'm overly optimistic person. What usually can happen is after I did like all the mental modeling and like mental math, I'll derive the unit economics of like 10 to 1. Like LTV is 10, customer acquisition cost is 1, that kind of ratio. And just by looking at that, you know this is wrong. You don't have that unit economics. It's like, it's not real. It's not happening. Like the same goes for a growth rate. If you're seeing like a 500% growth rate month over month for like 12 months, that's not realistic. It probably means that either you have a problem with your formula or you just, increase the conversion rate by that much that now it becomes like just a spaceship, which probably not going to happen. So this serves for me just as a check-in point where I would go back and check if all the things that I'm like, changed make sense when you combine it.
Makes sense. Yeah. So you double check whether you are the assumptions and levers you were pulling, it outputs something realistic actually, and it
Yeah.
is most of them are pretty clear. There is a customer acquisition cost, there is month-on-month growth, and then there is K factor. What is that?
Yeah, so the key factor is the metric used to describe the referral programs. This is essentially the virality coefficient, meaning that in this case, every single user would bring 0.4 additional users through the referral program. And the reason why this metric is in there is, again, because we were a multi-user fintech product, we would expect that this is going to be our main driver of growth. So this is why you're seeing that separately, just because that's like thing that we wanted to optimize around, and we wanted to make sure that if you signed up to the product, you bring your partner or your roommate or your fiance to the product. And yeah, that's essentially why that one is in there. And the last one that this is the one that helps you grow in a sustainable way. And what I mean by that is once I added all the inputs with no adjustments, so all the real inputs, this is the data that we're seeing right now when we open like Amplitude or whatever other tool we're using. I would just like copy paste it here. And I would say, okay, this is our plan. This is what we think is going to happen. And then at the end of every month, as I mentioned, I would go back to the inputs and I would adjust them with the real numbers. So like how many new users we got, how many like, new transactions we're seeing, or like total transactions we're seeing. So that's the fact. And then I compare the two. And I'm seeing what is the difference. And again, you might see that the difference here is huge. Again, dummy data, this is why. But essentially, if we're seeing that, we missed $250,000 in revenue, this is huge. And this is the point in time where you need to sit down together with the team and you need to self-reflect on what worked, what did not work, and what actually happened. This is how you learn. This is how you like extract the insights, how you extract the learnings, and that is something that helps you be, I guess, like more confident moving forwards with the initiatives that you have in mind, with the projections that you have in mind, with the uplift that you would expect every single initiative to deliver for your business. So this self-reflection exercise, that's what makes it maybe the most useful tool. in your like toolbox as a growth person, the self-reflection one, because you have to constantly every single month you have to go back and like answer at least to yourself, answer like what you did right, what you did wrong, and how you can ensure that it's not going to happen in the future. So that's a relatively quick overview. We rushed through like a lot of things here. I guess as we talked before, that artifact will be linked in the podcast notes, as well as the detailed article outlining like every single line of that spreadsheet, which folks might use for their own benefit. And for sure, whenever there's like a question, like how do I go about like, this scenario, that scenario, do I really need to like factor in the engagement breakdown or can I skip it? Please reach out. I will be happy to help and answer any questions.
Yeah, this is invaluable. And you being open to work with founders, help them at least on a short call, set the basis for um, sustained growth. Do you think this applies just as well for a three-team founder, like a three-team startup, or does it apply just as well for a 10-team startup as well?
Yeah, so I think that probably if it's just like three founders and that's about it, you don't really need to do that. Most likely because you know what is the number one priority. But if you found yourself in a position that it's been three founders for like, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and it seems that there is no growth, maybe that can be like a helpful exercise for you as well. Maybe you were like too much focused on like, I don't know, user interviews or like trying to build the perfect product and you never launched that. So like whatever might be the case, I guess going through this exercise at least can give you like a different perspective of what you could have done differently. And for more mature teams, and by more mature teams, I mean relatively for a pre-seed startup. So anyone after the seed stage, anyone who has the first like marketing manager, growth manager, the first product manager, this is a must-have thing, and this is a must-do exercise that you have to do it. You have to do it because otherwise, again, you're gonna find yourself in a position where someone is working on something, but the business is not seeing the real impact. Because like all we care about is the number of users and number of dollars on our bank account at the end of the day. And we're getting there through like, building the product, addressing all those different things. And it's like really easy for people to be busy and to show that they're busy and to explain why they're busy without actually delivering the business impact. So as a growth manager, I do believe that any growth manager should sign off on the revenue goals and should be accountable for the revenue goals and should care about the revenue growth. So this is why the growth model is a must thing for me personally.
Fantastic. So this means that this is applicable for early on in the startup's journey. Essentially, as you say, the first hire you make on to focus on growth or product, and you're saying that that person should sign off under a goal that should be realistic but ambitious, and this is a way how to get there, right?
Exactly. Because like, look, if you're an ambitious founder, you obviously want to build like a unicorn and maybe something bigger than a unicorn, and you're reading all of these articles and you're like, okay, we need to grow like 3x this year or like 5x this year. But decomposing that growth, like essentially working backwards from that goal and seeing the real conversions and how much improvement you need to make to those conversions to hit the goal, that's the way of thinking and that's the way of like working essentially to really get there instead of just being like constantly stressed that, oh my gosh, like we're not gonna hit like 100 million revenue in like 5 years. What do we do?
Exactly. So as a founder, this is a way how to control month in, month out. How are we doing in terms of growth, and make sure that team members are held responsible and
Yep.
accountable. But
Yes,
also, what it does is you could be showing whatever hockey stick you want for investors. This is a way how to actually link that. Hey, this is a projection that's I seemingly build it for just the investors, but link it back to how is month in, month out this actually executed. And when an investor asks, you can back it up with good actual numbers on the funnel that, yeah, these projections make sense.
exactly. You know, like I'm not a huge fan from the investor standpoint. I'm not a huge fan of asking like pre-seed startups to like, oh, show me your P&L or like financial forecast. It just like
No,
doesn't make a lot of sense. But it definitely becomes a thing that you need to care about as you grow as a company. Right. And again, to your point, you're totally right. At some point in the future for a lot of startups is gonna be the moment where, okay, now we have to articulate the revenue, now we have to articulate the growth. And if we're saying that we're gonna get like, that much revenue, we need to understand a way how to get there. And this is something that I would expect a lot of investors to challenge and ask, like, oh, okay, you're saying that you're gonna like, go from like 1 million ARR to like 10 million ARR, but like how exactly gonna do it? And that's
fantastic.
where you can open the growth model. You can be like, okay, this is our inputs. That's what we think is a priority based on this 1% increase exercise we did. And those are the initiatives that we're planning to deliver. Those are like estimated, those are documented and planned. And we would expect that much of an impact based on like the historical performance or any other data nugget that you might have. And so that really connects what you're selling to the investors or what you're promising to the investors with what you as a founder should be focused on a monthly basis and how your team performs within the same month. So it really ties all the way back from like an investor promise to your like Jira ticket, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. This was spot on. I think we can leave it there. It's awesome that we have this template for um, any startup founder looking to add structure to their ambition. And how can founders best reach you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn. LinkedIn will be the best thing. Just shoot me a message. Pretty active this past few weeks on LinkedIn, averaging about like 2 hours a day. I'm not sure if it's like a positive thing or if it's a negative thing more. But anyways, yeah, I'm super active on LinkedIn. So shoot me a message and yeah, I'll be happy to help.
We're so fortunate to have you as part of the great community of bad ideas. And thanks for paying it forward and sharing your knowledge and talents.
Yeah, no, totally. Thank you, sir. Thanks for inviting me over. Really excited, and yeah, I hope that a lot of people gonna find that this our conversation really valuable for their business.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you. You have a good one.